Okay, so I wanted to make this video because I see all these looks maxing grifters on YouTube selling face ratings for $10 a pop, or even more in some cases, and let me tell you, they are ripping you off. You do not need to pay some random man from YouTube to tell you how attractive you are. And by the way, these are the same guys that promote mewing, thumb pulling, Botox, and all sorts of other useless and or dangerous garbage. But it's really not that difficult to figure out where you fall on the 1 to 10 look scale. And in the later half of this video, I will be outlining a simple method that you can perform that will tell you exactly where you rank on the look scale. But first, let's talk about how the look scale works. Looksmaxers like to say that the scale should follow a normal distribution, as in it should work like a bell curve. So in that scale, a 6 would be in the top 15% of the population, a 7 in the top 2.5%, an 8 would be in the top 0.134%, and a 9 is in the top 0.005%. And I don't even know if that math adds up. I'm just taking those numbers from something I found online, but it is something like that. But just like with most things looksmaxers say, the idea of a normally distributed look scale is just nonsensical. There is no reason whatsoever to believe that human attractiveness would be normally distributed. I don't know where the idea comes from, but for some reason a lot of pseudo-intellectuals seem to think that literally everything in the world follows a normal distribution. But that's not true at all. This never has been true, and no scientist ever said that that's the case. So I don't even know where that comes from. And the thing is, looksmaxers, these guys want you to think that they're being logical and scientific, but they're actually just too stupid and autistic to understand how regular humans view each other. When people rate someone on the 1 to 10 scale, the vast majority of people are not thinking in terms of any kind of percentages or distributions. And they also aren't considering minute differences in how attractive different people are. So basically what I'm saying is this: forget about the 1 to 10 scale. Or you can use it, but just keep in mind that there is no difference between an 8 and a 10, or between a 5 and a 6. So what I'm going to do now is I will explain how women actually view men. Then we can convert that to numbers on the 1 to 10 scale. See, in reality, women mentally place men into 4 categories, which are, starting from the bottom, so ugly it's offensive. And men in this category have no chance at all of finding love. On the 1 to 10 scale, this encompasses all men below a 5 out of 10. So you could also call this level sub 5. Invisible. Men in this category are not viewed as attractive, but not necessarily unattractive either. They might be able to have some dating success, but it will require a lot of luck and effort. On the 1 to 10 scale, this is your 5s and 6s out of 10. Men at this level could also be referred to as normies. Attractive. Men in this category are seen as attractive to most women. They will have success in dating as long as they put in effort, but they will have to have good game if they want to attract women that are their looks match. But they can readily get with women below their looks match, in person that is, because on dating apps these men are still invisible, but in person things are a little bit different. So yeah, these are the 7 out of 10s, or the Chad Lights. Hot. Men in this category are seen as highly attractive by virtually all women. Women will upend their entire lives for a chance with one of these men. Men at this level don't even have to try. Women will approach them and make their intentions clear. These are the 8, 9, and 10 out of 10s, also known as Chads. Okay, So there's an actual look scale that you can use that actually maps onto reality. As in, this scale actually represents how women view men in the real world. Under the hood, so to speak, this is the scale that women are operating with, whether they're conscious of it or not. Now, I did tell you how you can convert each level of this scale to ratings on the 1 to 10 scale, but it actually makes more sense to use a different numerical scale with this system, and that is the -1 to +2 scale. There are 4 levels on this scale, so we could just use 1 to 4, but -1 to +2 is better in my opinion because the numbers themselves actually make sense with their respective level. So -1 refers to the so ugly it's offensive category, or the sub 5 category, whatever you want to call it. But since men at this level are seen as less than human, it only makes sense that the representative numerical rating should be negative. Then moving up, the invisible category, of course, this should be represented numerically by 0 because what number better represents invisibility than 0? Then moving up from there, the 2 higher levels of the scale, which describe men that women actually find attractive, well, since these are the only positive categories on the scale, they're the only categories represented by positive numbers. Okay, so that is the actual look scale that women actually use when they evaluate a man's appearance. So now let's go over how you can determine for yourself where you rank on that scale. So first of all, if you're waiting for me to explain how you can evaluate your looks by looking in the mirror or measuring different parts of your face and calculating ratios or anything like that, then forget about it. Pretty much everything you've ever read from looksmaxing communities about how to evaluate male attractiveness, it is all bullshit. The one and only way to accurately determine how attractive you are is through observation, specifically observing how people react to you. And mostly, it's through observing how women react to you. Because men will also treat you differently based on how attractive you are, but the treatment you get from women will be more telling. See, the thing with men is that men will show you more respect if you're good looking, but they'll also show you more respect if you have hyper masculine features or if you're just really large and intimidating. And on the flip side, men will typically show you less respect if you have more feminine features, although a man with more feminine features could be highly attractive in some cases. So you can't really go off of your observations of how men react to you. But generally speaking, the way that women treat you is usually indicative of how attracted they are to you. So the best way to figure out where you rank on the look scale would be by approaching 10 women and trying to hit on them and then evaluating how they react to you. But I wouldn't expect anyone to actually go through all that just to find out how attractive they are because, I know why you clicked on this video. You want an easy method you can use right now to accurately determine your looks rank without having to subject yourself to any potentially damaging social situations. So, I do have a method you can use that fits that criteria. It will require you to go out and interact with women in a way, but it's a lot more reasonable than actually approaching women. Okay? So you don't actually have to approach women for this to work. And I think this method strikes the perfect balance between being relatively low effort while also still providing you with accurate results. But it's still not going to be easy for you if you have high inhibition or social anxiety, whatever you want to call it, but there's no getting around it. You do have to observe how women react to you in the real world if you want to know how attractive you are. That is the only way. So this method I'm about to tell you about, this is probably the easiest, lowest effort, lowest impact thing you can do that will still give you an accurate assessment of your looks. Okay? So here it is. I'm calling this the smile test, and here's how it works. Go to a public place where there's a lot of women. So that could be like a mall or a festival or a college campus or even just a park or like TJ Maxx or whatever. And it doesn't have to be a super busy location, but you need to be able to find at least 10 women for this to work. The more women you can test with, the better, but 10 is the bare minimum if you want accurate results. So the smile test is pretty simple. As you are walking around this public location, whenever you walk past a woman who is walking in your direction, you need to smile and stare at her. And you do need to hold the smile and stare for the entire time as you walk past her. And each time you do this, you take note of how the woman reacts, and you categorize each reaction into one of 3 categories, which are: category number 1, she gives you an unambiguously positive reaction, meaning unmistakably she smiles back and holds eye contact with you. Maybe she blushes, maybe she even tries to stop and talk to you. But the important thing here is that her reaction is unmistakably positive. If you find yourself thinking anything like, well, I think she was smiling, but then stop right there. If there's any doubt at all that a reaction was positive, then it doesn't count. And it probably should be labeled under the second category, which is category number 2. The reaction was neither positive or negative, or you just couldn't tell either way. Maybe she just ignored you, or maybe she did make some kind of face, but you just couldn't really read it. And even if you think she just literally didn't even see you, then you label that reaction in this category. Because if you and a woman are walking past each other and you're staring at her, she will almost definitely notice. And even if she truly didn't notice, well, if she found you attractive, then she probably would have noticed. So the observation still works. So that's the second category. The reaction is neither positive or negative, or you just don't know. So we'll call that a neutral reaction. Category number 3. This is when she gives you an unambiguously negative reaction. So that means maybe she gives you a disgusted look, or she calls you a creep, or maybe she literally turns and runs away in the other direction. Any reaction that is unmistakably negative falls into this category. So after you've performed the test at least 10 times, what you do is you assign a score to each observation based on its category. So observations in the unambiguously positive category are worth 4 points. Observations in the neutral category are worth 1 point. And observations in the unambiguously negative category are worth 0 points. So then you sum up all the points from each observation and you divide that sum by the total number of observations. Then the result you get from this calculation can be mapped to your looks rating using this chart. So let's say you performed the test on 10 women and you got 2 positive reactions, 2 negative reactions, and 6 neutral reactions. So in that case, your score would be 4 plus 4 plus 0 plus 0 plus 6, which equals 14. So then you divide 14 by 10, which is the total number of observations, and you end up with 1.4. So now we go to the chart and we can see that 1.4 maps to a 0 on the -1 to 2 scale, or a 5 to 6 on the classic 1 to 10 scale. And that makes sense, right? Because you did get 2 positive reactions, but that's offset a bit by the 2 negative reactions you received. If instead you had received 2 positive reactions and no negative reactions, then your sum score would be 4 plus 4 plus 8, which equals 16, divided by 10, and the result is 1.6. So in that case, your rating on the real look scale would be a 1, which maps to a 7 on the 1 to 10 look scale. Now let's say you got 5 positive reactions and 5 negative reactions. And I'll skip all the boring math, but in that case, your sum score would be 20 and you would be in the hot category. So that's a 2 on the -1 to 2 scale, or an 8 plus on the 1 to 10 scale. And that might seem wrong at first, because if you got an equal number of unambiguously negative reactions and unambiguously positive reactions, you might think that that should put you right in the middle of the look scale. But no, that's wrong. There's a reason why an unambiguously positive reaction is worth 4 points, while an unambiguously negative reaction neither adds or subtracts from your score. And that is because positive reactions are much, much harder to come by. So if half of the women you smiled and stared at gave you an unmistakably positive response, then even if the other half of women gave you a negative reaction, it's still safe to say that you are a highly attractive man. And it may be just that your appearance is polarizing in some way, but you're still obviously very attractive if you had 5 out of 10 women give you a unambiguously positive reaction. Now, with that said, I think it is pretty unlikely that you'd get results like that where exactly half of all women react positively and half react negatively. But I did want to make sure that situations like that are accounted for in the methodology. And I know this whole thing probably sounds impossible. Smiling and staring at women in public might sound impossible if you are super high inhibition like I am. So one thing you can do to make this a bit easier is you can focus on staring at something that's right behind her, or focus on staring at the top of her head instead of her eyes. And I know that's still not going to be possible for a lot of guys, but unfortunately, like I said, if you want to actually evaluate your level of attractiveness, and you want to do that accurately, there's no getting around the fact that you are going to have to get some real life observations to make that evaluation. You just have to. With that said, the vast majority of us sub-5s already know without a shadow of a doubt that we are sub-5. Like, we've just had enough life experience to tell us that, so there's not really any good reason to go through with an experiment like this for most of us. And the same goes for highly attractive or hot men. Like, if you're an 8 plus out of 10, then I'm sure you already know that. So the smile test will give you an accurate assessment of where you fall on the look scale, but it's really not necessary if you're on the far end of either side of the spectrum. But for those of you that you're on the border somewhere, or you're somewhere in the middle as far as your looks go, then the smile test can be a very accurate method, and also probably the easiest method you can do in order to get actually accurate results. And again, the classic 1 to 10 scale, it just doesn't map with the reality of how women actually view men. So this scale that I'm presenting here, this is how women actually view you, okay? And that's what you actually care about when you're talking about how attractive you are. So, yeah,